Welcome to House of History. Last video we delved into the prehistory of Prussia, in which the Deutschritter Orden, or Teutonic Order, colonized pre-Hohenzollern Prussia. Around 1192 this new order made its appearance in the Kingdom of Jerusalem. With their characteristic white mantles and horned helmets, the Knights of the Teutonic Order emerged as a powerful force in medieval Europe, greatly influencing its course of history. Because interestingly enough, the Teutonic Order never really distinguished itself in the Holy Land. It remained a purely Germanic movement and would eventually shape the future of the German East. In this video, we will look at the Order's background, its rituals, and how it reached its zenith of power in Europe, only to eventually fall into decline. Welcome to the complete history of Prussia. The Teutonic Order, established around 1192, was quite different from the Templar Knights and Knights of St. John, other contemporary Catholic military orders. The initiative for the order didn't come from the clergy or even from the German knights, but from German burghers, merchants from Bremen and Lübeck, old cities of the Hanseatic League. As crusading knights were passing their settlements outside the city of Acre in the Kingdom of Jerusalem, it is said disease befell them. The merchants now took it upon themselves to build hospitals and dormitories in order to care for their sick. Pope Celestine III eventually granted them recognition as being a spiritual corporation in 1196, and Pope Innocent confirmed this under one condition: the corporation should become more knightly, taking after the Templars. Furthermore, it should model its hospital rules after those of the Order of St. John, and as such, a new order was born. Whereas old orders such as the aforementioned two managed to accumulate much wealth, according to historian H.W. Koch, the Teutonic Order didn't. They hadn't fought any famous battles in the Holy Land, and thus hadn't managed to accumulate much wealth. Paradoxically, this meant that institutional corruption and decay didn't affect the Teutonic Knights. Throughout its history, the order consisted of three main branches. Firstly, the German branch, which was concentrated in southwestern Germany. Secondly, there was a branch in Livonia, a region on the shores of the Baltic Sea. And thirdly, there was a Prussian branch with its center at Marienburg. Eventually, the Prussian branch would become the center of the entire order, with Marienburg as its headquarters. Whereas initially the order saw the Holy Land as its center of missionary activity, early on in the 13th century the order began to focus itself more on Eastern Central Europe. This change of their point of attention would greatly influence the history of the order and Europe as a whole. Alright, so after the establishment of the order, it led a relatively insignificant life on the periphery of the Holy Land and medieval Europe. Now, its actual rise to prominence on the European theater was in part thanks to the Emperor of the Holy Roman Empire, Frederick II. Frederick attempted to turn this order into his personal loyal bodyguard. On behalf of the order, he had the papacy grant charters for it. He recruited prominent members and tried to have knights from other orders join it. Whenever something had to be done in the Holy Land, he trusted no one but the Teutonic Knights to carry out the task, and within the empire, he trusted the knights with the administration over several territories. Its Grand Master was to be part of the royal household when attending court. And that wasn't a blind decision. The fourth Grand Master of the Order, Hermann von Salza, was one of Frederick's closest confidants. Von Salza, a true diplomat, used his position as Grand Master to mediate between Frederick and the papacy whenever necessary, and it often was necessary. Frederick, in his own person, is interesting as he managed to centralize the judicial and political administration of the empire, something that was hitherto unknown in Europe. Von Salza used this as a blueprint to restructure the order, with some modifications where necessary. Due to the restructuring of the order, it became practical to focus on settling in Central Eastern Europe instead of the Holy Land. Around 1222, the order attempted to settle in Burzenland, Transylvania, upon invitation of King Andrew of Hungary to fight the Cuman people. 5 castles were built in the region with the reluctant agreement of the king. There was much resistance from other German settlers, though, and Hungarians in the region, and actually imposing the order's own rule never happened. Now, far north of Burzenland, Konrad of Masovia, Duke of Poland, happened to find himself unable to rule the heathen Prussians within his domains. As a last hope, he turned to the Teutonic Knights with the promise that if they would subjugate the Prussians, they would be rewarded with the territories of Kulm along the river Vistula. After 4 years of issues without the order gaining any real foothold in Burzenland, they were expelled by the Hungarian king, for he didn't take kindly to them trying to establish an autonomous state on his territory. Von Salza realized it would be smart to document the order's rights confirmed by the Holy Roman Emperor before they actually moved to Prussia. Overseen by Emperor Frederick II and the Pope in March 1226, the Golden Bull of Rimini was issued. In it, considerable privileges were granted to von Salza and the order, basically containing the foundation for the future state of the Teutonic Order. Oh, and just know that I won't repeat it for every battle and every year, but just know that the atrocities and colonization of the Baltic and Western Slavic territories were incredibly bloody and can easily be considered as genocide. Before we delve into the Prussian Crusade and the state that was established, I want to take a look at the rituals and the inner workings of the Teutonic Order. In its oldest set of rules dating back to their time in the Holy Land in the 12th century, members of the order dedicated their lives to Jesus Christ. It's not really a big surprise there. They were exempted from secular justice, could not marry, had to adhere to celibacy, renounce freedom of personal will, and the possession of personal property. The order dedicated itself to maintaining hospitals or recognition of the origins of the order. The knights were expected to serve the sick in a humble and faithful manner. Boys could join the order after the age of 14, and of course no women could join in order to maintain the virility of the order. Its members took Holy Communion 7 times a year and attended Mass. Interestingly enough, although hierarchy was shunned within the order, there was an outer distinction between normal laymen and knights. Only the knights could wear the characteristic white mantles bearing black crosses. In terms of hairdo, the clergy was expected to have a tonsure, and the knights close-cropped hair with moderate beards. Now, the beard stood in contrast with many other knightly orders at the same time, which earned them the nickname, the Bearded Ones. Furthermore, there were many religious rituals as expected, blessing food, praying, and fasting on Fridays. Fraternization was expected, and all brothers of the house slept within one room. No knight was allowed to have his own seal, coat of arms, or write letters. There is an incredibly interesting chapter in the book by Koch, A History of Prussia, if you want to know more about its rituals. There are way too many to be able to cover in this video. It is safe to say that the Teutonic Order was a sober and pious fraternity. The last important thing to note, perhaps the most important thing, is that marriage obviously was forbidden, and the knights of the order were not allowed to talk to women, not even kiss their sisters and mothers on the cheek. And a logical conclusion of this lifestyle was that members of the order did not have any offspring. They had to constantly recruit new blood from outside the order. Even the position of the Hochmeister or Grand Master himself was prevented from turning into a hereditary property. Now, initially nothing was really granted to the order. After all, the territory still had to be conquered, and the heathens still had to be converted. Another order was active in the region, the religious order of the Cistercian monks. Grandmaster from Salza managed to make allies of them, and together the Teutonic Knights and Cistercian monks became the main pillars of missionary activity in the northeast. The Golden Bull stated something important. All conquests were to be free property of the order. The Grand Master was to enjoy all the privileges that pertained to a prince of the empire, including royal privileges, and in Prussia, the order shall be free from all imperial taxes, burdens, and services. The impact of these rights could not have been foreseen in the early 13th century, but the future of the Teutonic Order and Prussia were heavily determined by it, and with that, the future of Germany as a whole. We've already looked a bit at the colonization and conquest of Prussia by the Teutonic Knights in the previous video about the history of Prussia. By 1230, the land was granted to the order by Conrad of Masovia, disclaiming any enfeoffment. The foundations for the state of the Teutonic Order were laid. Now, it wasn't a massive influx of Teutonic Knights during the days of Hermann from Salza. The order listed around 600 members, though by the late 1270s it had increased to 2,000. Still, very, very moderate numbers. In order to conquer the Baltic Old Prussians living around the Vistula, they recruited crusaders from the German lands and empire. The Germans provided the crusading spirit was alive and well, for by 1231 Teutonic Knights leading entire crusading armies conquered large parts of the eastern banks of the Vistula and built their fortresses and castles there. By von Salza's death in 1239, the order controlled more than 150 kilometers of the Baltic coast, a great foothold to expand further inland. Another decade later, in 1255, Ottokar II, King of Bohemia, joined the crusade in Prussia. In Samland, a new fortress was built in his honor. Its name was Königsberg, and its emblem a knight with crowned helmet. In the future centuries, the city built around it would serve as the cultural and economic center of Eastern Prussia. The later decades of the 13th century consisted of multiple major and minor uprisings by the Old Prussians. Occasionally, they were even supported by Prussian nobility against the Teutonic Order. In response, the order started to demand complete submission, cracking down on the Prussian nobility and tribes. At the same time, the order attracted settlers from the German Empire to replenish their ranks and populate their towns. A policy of Germanization in its most rigorous form was implemented in Prussia alone. Now, international politics are a bit confusing and difficult during this time. I'll try to briefly summarize what went down. In 1308, the order laid claim to the city of Danzig after expelling the Essenian Brandenburgers at the request of the Polish crown. The order wasn't too committed to the Polish crown, however. They switched sides and fought a brief war against the Polish crown. Emerging victorious, Danzig, for now, was theirs. The Lithuanians, controlling considerable territory in the region, weren't too thrilled about the order expanding around their periphery. A specter of a Polish-Lithuanian alliance against the order started to emerge. During that time, King Casimir of Poland married the daughter of the King of Lithuania. Grand Master Siegfried von Feuchtwangen made his priority to consolidate and expand the order's colonial territory to resist this alliance. The next 3 decades marked, among others, the Polish-Teutonic Wars, until 1343, when the Peace of Kalisz was concluded and Poland officially ceded Danzig. It marked a real rift between the order and their traditional ally, the papacy, as Rome supported the Poles. After the victory over the Poles, the order enjoyed its zenith of secular power. Throughout the wars, there was extensive trade with the Hanseatic League. Nobles from all over Europe considered it a point of pride to become a knight. Not just any nobles, but famous examples are Henry Bolingbroke, who later became King of England, and Jean Boucicaut, who later became Marshal of France. By 1398, the order even created its own fleet supported by the Hanseatic cities. Yet the prosperity and political dominance were at the root of the eventual decline of the order. As the order prospered, its vows of obedience, poverty, and chastity became mere lip service. Towns and landowners increasingly complained about the order suppressing and restricting them in their doing. It didn't help that the intellectual development of the order halted. Several grandmasters could neither read or write, with educational facilities withering away. Because the offices of the order weren't hereditary, it lost a connection to its own lands. They recruited new blood from the German Empire, not so much from Prussia. As the Lithuanians were forced to convert to Christianity following the marriage of Prince Jagiello of Lithuania to the heiress of the crown of Poland, the external pagan threat bore no semblance anymore, and the townsfolk increasingly started to look at the foreign Poles and Lithuanians as a potential ally against the Order. In the north, a strong Denmark emerged, and the long-feared union between Poland and Lithuania had come true. Hanseatic cities started to contest privileges, and in 1410, Grandmaster Ulrich von Jungingen bet it all on one horse. He raised an army of nearly 50,000 men and rode out to confront the Poles and Lithuanians on 15th of July 1410. The battle became known as the Battle of Grunwald and resulted in the resounding defeat of the Order by an army twice their size. International politics, mainly the threat of Hungary attacking Poland, led to the relatively favorable peace of Thorn in 1411, although at Prussia's periphery, bands of marauding Poles and Lithuanians were commonplace. It led to the new Grand Master to raise an army against both countries once again, culminating in the ever-so-fittingly named Hunger War and Gullib War, resulting in a defeat for the Teutonic Order. Following the defeat, several divisions within the Order became apparent, and a period of internal wars and feuds followed. An alternative government to that of the Teutonic Order was even created, the Prussian League. It consisted of members of the cities and landed nobility. The League requested help from King Casimir of Poland against the Order, which led to the 13 Years' War. The king, after all, was all too happy to support the League since they promised for Prussia to become part of Poland in case of a victory. Now, at the start of the war in 1454, the Elector of Brandenburg, Frederick II, bought Neumark from Prussia in an attempt to expand his power more eastward. By 1466, the Order had lost the war, and as the Second Peace of Thorn was signed, the Order ceded West Prussia to Poland. It would now be ruled in personal union by the Polish king, and from now on, it was known as Royal Prussia. Furthermore, the Grand Master of the Order had to swear an oath of fealty to the King of Poland. Now, there were several more Grand Masters after this peace, but the one important for our study is the one that ascended in 1510. Albert of Brandenburg-Ansbach. He played a pivotal role in the emergence of the Hohenzollerns as rulers over Brandenburg-Prussia. Next episode, we'll look at the history of the Hohenzollern clan in Brandenburg and at Albert's political play that resulted in Hohenzollerns controlling the Order's territories as well. Thank you for watching this video. Make sure you check out the playlist about the complete history of Prussia on screen. I would also like to thank all my patrons for their generous support. If you enjoy House of History and want to support my work, consider checking me on Patreon. For just $1 a month, you will already gain access to the exclusive Patreon series. Don't forget to subscribe. See you next time.